welcome back to part 2 of getting across the river. Part 1, we talked about building the cable system, anchoring it to either side of the river, putting your cable in, building your gondola, hanging it from the wires. So now we're to the hard part. How do you get across the river? It isn't going to glide across. It's going to get about halfway and stop. So figuring out how to do that for us was a process. Now, when we first got here, we had one of these things. This was how you get across the river. It's an aluminum bar, and it's got some nylon rope to go with it. What you do with this little puppery, you take it up, you hook it on to your gondola like that, and you notice when you pull it this way, there's resistance. So you bring it as far forward as you can, and then you pull, and you move your gondola forward. When you get it as far forward as you can get it, you then put a piece of rope in here. That crimps against the sheave up here at the top, keeps the cable from the car from sliding backwards, and then you pull again until finally you get across the river. And it works. Trouble is, when we put Karen in here, and we put another 300 pounds of groceries and gear in here, it is hard as hell to pull yourself across, especially when it's snowing or raining or cold. So we looked for plan B. Okay, that was plan A. Didn't work real well, but we keep it handy just in case. Plan B was this little puppy here, which is 5/16 braided Dacron. It's got a breaking strength of about 10,000 pounds. And the nice thing about Dacron is it doesn't stretch, which is useful when we're putting it to this purpose. What we did was we stretched this line from the A-frame on one side all the way across to the A-frame on the other. So it's a fixed line just below the cable. And the idea here was, instead of reaching up to pull, we just use this line. So we just grab the line and pull ourselves across. That works pretty well, especially when it's empty. But once again, we found that even with Karen and I pulling together, when we've got 300 pounds of weight in here, plus ourselves, it's a hell of a lot of work. And again, no fun when it's raining or snowing, or even when it's really hot outside. So we began to look for plan C. Okay, plan C. We started to look for somebody else to do the work for us. Now, we couldn't find another friend to do that. They were all very smart. So we had to find some sort of motive power. And what we came to was this. And this is an old anchor winch. Works on a boat. It's used to raise and lower the anchor. And we said, this will work. We'll just use it to pull the gondola across. So what it works on is a size 27D battery that we set in the gondola. We fasten our positive and negative cables on the battery. We take the winch and put it on the gondola. Right like that. Hook the wires up, and then we get into the gondola, and now we can take the rope that we were using, and instead of pulling ourselves across, we have this bolted down, and we simply wrap the line around the winch, connect the batteries to the cable, and push our little button here, release ourselves, and we get pulled across the river with an electric winch. Works great. It's a little slow. You could probably read a book on the way across, but it gets us there. The only downside for this particular contraption is that it depends upon a battery. Batteries are only good for so many trips, especially when you have a 40 amp winch pulling on it. It takes about 4 minutes to get across the river and another 4 to get back. If you have a lot of loads to take, or you're going to be here for a while, you run the risk of running your battery down. In which case it's back to plan A to pull yourself back across the river until you recharge the battery. It worked, but its limitation was the battery. Just didn't last long enough for us, and we didn't want to have to worry about recharging the battery every time we went across the river. So we're going to plan A, plan B, plan C. We're now looking for plan D. Okay, plan A, plan B, plan C. We're now at plan D. What this is a little 4-stroke gasoline engine made by Honda. It's 35 cc's, and it is mounted to a winch. This unit is made by Simpson Winch in Oregon, and it's used a lot by elk hunters. You fasten this unit to a tree, you tie your animal off, and you winch it up the hill using the Simpson winch. I'm sure it's got a lot of other uses, but when I saw it, I looked at it and said, you know, we might be able to use this for plan D, to pull our gondola across the stream. And the only modification we made was I put a plate. This is the winch unit itself. Weld a plate together so I could mount the winch on the plate, and then I could take the plate and move it over here and put it on these crossbars that I mounted, screwed in place, and screw it down like this, and then same steps as before. You take the cable or the wire, rope, and you take it and you wrap it around your winch, fill the gas tank up, prime it, pull the old cord here and get it going, and once it's moving, the engine's running, you can use this lever here to advance the idle to a faster speed. Now, don't get carried away here. Fast speed means maybe 1 foot a second, so it's still a long trip across the river, but enjoy the view. It's pretty. It works.
Go.
All right, well, that's plan D. And I think plan D is as far as we need to go for now. This unit works really well. The other thing about it is that it's a little lighter than an 8D battery in that big electric winch. We can just throw it in the truck when we're going to town for groceries, come back, stick it back on the unit when we return, and go across the stream. Bob's your uncle. So that's how we get across the river. Thanks for watching.